let's introduce ourselves to each other because we do have a couple new people. And I don't know if you all have met Mary either. So maybe I can turn this around. And Mary and April might also want to say hi. I'm Debbie. You haven't met me before. I've only been talking to you on the phone, met you the other day. But let's just kind of go around and say our names to everybody. And I'm going to turn this around so you can introduce yourself.
Hi,
Mm-hmm.
my name's Carrie.
That's good.
And I'm Mimi.
I'm John.
You guys want to show your face? This is Mary.
I'm Mary.
And Mary has been in school for a while. She did the April. Are you okay just hanging out there without showing your face right now? All right. We're beginning with the second course. So you missed the first course, which is fine. People can start whenever they want. But the first course introduces some things that are very fundamental to yoga. Sean, did you get to do any of that work a little bit before you started with the first course?
I only skimmed over the stuff that you sent me. I haven't
That's fine. But the rest of you all have been through course one. Why don't we just talk a bit about how you feel course one might apply to this course anatomy? If anybody has any thoughts about that has already been through that course, and I'll chime in too. What are some things that you might think would pertain from course one to this course? Course one being ethics, history, philosophy, lifestyle. And it's the first course, I wouldn't say in a perfect world, but it kind of lays a foundation for everything that comes after. We do, resurface the same concepts the whole time throughout the whole program, and other concepts weave into the first course. So it's very always flowing together. But there are some reasons why course one is course one. And this isn't just because it was some random idea that I had. It's because in course one, you learn about, there's like the 8 limbs of yoga. It's kind of like, they have so many books that are written like the 10 ways to whatever, lose weight, or 10 ways to eat better, or 8, there tends to be a numbering system. And even back then, that they were written in about 800 BCE. Patanjali had, and Patanjali might be one person, or he or she might be a group of people, because Patanjali means compiler, one who compiles and puts things together. So he came up with 8 steps to do yoga. And the first one, does anybody know what that is? The first step of yoga. That gets you starting to...
It's almost like the 10 steps of faith.
Yeah, it can be.
Something about like letting go of your I don't.
Okay, I will tell you. Okay, but it is a lot like that. Okay, so the 8 limbs are, number 1 are the yamas, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. The second one is niyamas. The third one is asana. The fourth is pranayama. The fifth is basically not pranayama, pratyahara, which means withdrawal of the senses, and then there's pranayama, and then there's meditation, and so on. But I'm going to circle and stay right there on the yamas. That's the first step. And what the yamas are basically are rules or ethics or ways that we do things. And the first one has to do with compassion. And the word is ahimsa. Don't worry about knowing any of these words. You don't have to memorize them. It's more the idea, the idea of compassion. Then there are 4 others. There's like truthfulness, non-stealing, non-grasping, taking care of yourself, being moderate in things. Okay, so good things, right? And then the niyamas are, I remember it this way, because yamas means literally in Sanskrit. Again, don't worry about memorizing the stuff, but it means restraint, or to kind of tether your way in a little bit. And so those yamas are there to help you restrain your behavior, and with other people, with yourself as well. Compassion is a nice thing to do for yourself and for others. That's kind of the main thing. I tend to just digress, so stop me when I do that too much, but I do want to tell you one thing about all of the Yoga Sutras, the book that was written about 800 to 200 BCE. The first sentence, it's only 195 sentences, and it's comprised of kind of like, you might say, paragraphs. Like there's a group of sentences, and then there's another group, and then there's another group. The first sentence in each group is the most important one. The first sentence in the yamas is compassion. So all the other ones that come after it, non-cheering, non-grasping, truthfulness, all that have to do with, they really go back to compassion. If you're compassionate, you're not going to do those things. So more simple than you think, it's just knowing that that's the root thing there. And then we go to the niyamas, and those are ways that we take care of ourselves. And those rules are like saucha, which means cleanliness, and what you're talking about, which is the AA grant me the strength to change the things I can change, the serenity to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. So those are three of them. And they're called, the first one is tapas, which means you do the work. And again, don't worry about memorizing these. Tapas, you do the work. Svadhyaya, which is a fun word to say. Svadhyaya is you study. You study yourself. That's the wisdom part. You're like, yeah. What is happening when I do this? When you to study yourself and you study your movement, you study, you think about it. So basically it means observation and consideration. Then the third one is pranidhana. And what that means is that I don't have control over things. I may do all the work in the world. I may brush my teeth every day and use dental floss, but I still get cavities, that kind of thing. But you still do the work. It's the right thing to do. And yeah, so that's what you do. So those are kind of the basic to yoga philosophy. And so I wanted to bring that up because that will affect all of anatomy and all of everything else we're going to be doing in any aspect of yoga, those basic things. So in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali had those two things first before he ever taught any asana. And he didn't have a limb that was anatomy, but that's why we designed this course like this. So the first course is learning the ethics. The second course is now we get into we get into anatomy. And anatomy kind of will merge into asana. So I will be talking about a lot of this stuff as functional anatomy, as how it applies not just to our asana practice, but how we live in everyday life. So all of asana, when we get there, we're not there yet, but all the asanas are designed in the Yoga Sutras to help us sit like this so we can meditate. So that's why it's important to understand functional anatomy so that we can figure out, well, how can we sit better? How can we have better posture? How can we take care of our body and be stronger? So we're approaching anatomy from that point of view. We're approaching it not as learning every single joint and where the muscles attach and all that kind of thing, but really learning about how can we take care of our body in a way that we are freer from distractions, and the distractions being, sitting and be like, oh, this really bothers me, more healthy and have better posture so we feel better. So I think that's really important, is to kind of, when we approach anatomy, to think of it as that. And so many people get just freaked out by it, and there's of muscles, but bones and all the other, just to name the beginning, the scratch the surface. So try to keep it more global, like the balancing of our body to help it function better. And so also the Yoga Sutras, when you're in that limb, so that limb comes after the first limb, the first two limbs, the yamas and the niyamas. The third one is asana. It says asana is the balance between effort and ease. Okay. And one of the best ways to describe it, we talked about this a lot. Carrie talked about it from her background in chemistry and physiology and all that, where our bodies are always seeking homeostasis, equal balance. And Iyengar, one of the most famous yogis around, and I can talk a little bit more about him later, but I don't want to digress too much. But he says, if you look at your hand and you go like this, where you're putting so much energy into it that it's just shaking, that's too much. That's too much what's called stira. And again, don't worry about the word, but that means putting in too much energy, putting in too much force, putting in too much efforting. But you also don't want it to be like this, which is called sukha, which is just super relaxed, super open. And it's represented, we talked about in one of our classes when we were doing a whereby weekly meeting. It's like the cell of our bodies, each of the cells in our bodies represents us, because the outer membrane of the cell is permeable. It doesn't literally have holes in it, but it's permeable. So stuff can come in, stuff can go out. But the membrane is like the stira. It's like the strength that we bring to our body. But the openness, however you want to look at holes or whatever, the open membrane, that's the sukha, the sweetness, the openness, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're looking for in our whole physiology and in all of our asanas, that balance of effort. So when you're in a pose, it's not necessarily you're trying to just, be in that pose like that. You want to have the framework, you want to have the membrane there to hold the energy in, but there's a fluidity to it. There's openness. You're still receiving energy and you're still giving energy. So homeostasis in our own body is a balancing thing that's always going on in our physiology. We're always trying to balance the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, for example. We're always balancing able to be strong with being able to let our muscles relax and repair themselves. So keeping that notion in mind, how close this is to the whole idea of the philosophy of yoga, I think is really important. Any questions on that? Any comments? So can you guys tell me a little bit about what you learned in the workshop that you did with Kimberly here? Just some ideas, because I just kind of want to hear your voices too, get you used to talking and all that. Get Mariah pumped up she's doing her community class on Sunday. So, and especially anything that might pertain to what we're talking about tonight.
To tie it in tonight, I don't remember. She was here last time, but it was more just on history, philosophy.
Yeah.
Just kind of
because she was, yeah.
Of that. But I think one thing I took away from that in relation to the anatomy stuff is just that, like, be kind to yourself, be kind to your body, have the pose fit your body. Don't make your body fit, just
exactly.
So that's
super important. There's another concept in yoga philosophy called Parinamavarata, and I think that's really important. I know all these words I say, don't worry about the words, but the concept is stuff happens. Basically, we're changing all the time. We know this, you wake up sometimes in a good mood, you wake up in a bad mood. Sometimes you wake up feeling a little off, you wake up feeling great. You get injuries, you get older. I have a new puppy. I keep talking about my puppy is just crazy bananas. In probably 2 months, he's going to be just, not that way. So life is always about changing. And so our practice, we have to always be looking at exactly what you said. Where am I now? Where is what do I need now? And the asana practice, again, we have to come back to the fact that we are doing the asana practice. Yoga is not necessarily doing fancy poses. Sure, they may come. And I've been in times in my life when I love to do crazy fancy poses, probably much where I have some damages, but then there comes a time when you're like, no, I need a different kind of thing. So just always respecting the fact that things are changing, and you always adapt your physical practice to your own unique physical situation at that time. So I think that's really important.
One thing she really stressed was how the stories, how you can bring them into your of the asanas.
Yeah, she's really great at that. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of fun. No, you probably haven't even had time to look at anything yet. Literally this morning he signed up. So I got his password about noon or so today. So I don't know if you've had time to look at. There's so many resources that are on what's called the course materials page. And you can go in and find those stories that Kimberly's done. And I've done some, and other teachers have done some, but they're really, stories sometimes are more truthful than truth. The stories of what these deities were doing, and the messages that they're trying to teach about all this. But yeah, that's we'll talk about that in some of the asanas when we get there, and we'll be doing some asana work today too, because everything ties together so much. So yeah. Any other thoughts anyone has?
There was a moment where she asked, "What's your favorite pose?" And a lot of us said the same pose. And for me, at least, I was like, I don't really know a lot of the poses yet. So
Yeah.
so I'm excited for this lesson to learn more poses so I can have a more informed answer.
Okay, well, good.
And that question is a tricky question because my favorite pose today could be very different than my favorite pose last week.
Yeah.
Or my favorite pose of all time. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there needs to be a qualifier.
Yeah, and so that goes into what I was saying, is that this is all about just being present. Okay, the main thing, and she probably said this, the main sentence, the Yoga Sutras, which I keep talking about, the first sentence is, there's 4 books, and the first book is, what is yoga? And does anybody remember what the answer to that is? So the very first sentence in the first book, there's 196 sentences in the whole book. Yeah, it's coming to still the mind. That's what it's about, you know. And so all the stuff we do is all the asana, all the pranayama, all the meditation, all that is to help still the mind. And we still the mind so that we can see our true nature. It's like, I'm going like this because it's like looking in a pool of water or looking in a mirror. And when you still the mind, or like a glass of water that you pour from a faucet, at first it's all cloudy, but then when it gets still, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I am, in fact, a unique, specific expression of the life force. And I do deserve compassion. I do deserve all that other stuff. So that's why we're doing everything we're doing, you know. But we want to care for ourselves. And that's coming back to the idea of taking time to be kind to our bodies, but at the same time do the work, do the asanas, and do them with compassion, non-stealing, non-grasping. What do you think that might mean as far as a posture? When someone says non-stealing, does anybody have any idea what you might think, what would be stealing in a posture?
Dumping into the move.
Dumping. Yeah, that's a great one. By dumping, she means like I would have to turn my back. I think it's so much more. Like if I was trying to sit in a seated mountain pose, being like this, I'm just dumping. The energy's not there. I'm dumping into my low back. Or another extreme would be to do a back bend like this, where I'm just dumping into the back of my neck and putting jamming up my low back. So, you know, just dumping into the pose, not being careful with your body. You're stealing time, or you're stealing energy from yourself. When the pose is supposed to be giving you energy, you're stealing from yourself. And I think non-grasping, which is another one of the yamas, is also kind of the same thing. Grasping, like I've seen that somebody do that pose and I'm going to do it no matter what. And then you end up hurting yourself. Honesty is one of them. And yeah, all those things, but you can see they all go together, all about taking care of yourself. So yeah, why I usually have, the school we started in 2008, and I started up in McCall, and we had about this size of a group, and everybody lived in McCall, and we all met like this every week, and we had lots of conversations because that's just the situation that was happening then. And every week I had the students think about one for the 10 weeks, because there's 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. Talk about, look in their life and journal about how did I see that playing out in my life? And I think that's one of the most valuable lessons. And Mimi, you're doing this school here with that is just, to me, so effective. It's such a brilliant way to live and to take care of yourself and to take care of other people and to build better relationships and all that. So living with that idea of compassion and non-stealing, all that stuff is really. But we're going to apply it towards our anatomy, as I said. So I'm going to go over some basic planes of motion and talk about what poses would be in these planes of motion, because planes of motion are actually pretty important for just understanding things. And I'll probably have us just get up and stand. I'm trying to see if I want to do it. We'll do it in a minute. Okay, so we'll start out here, seated. So the planes of movement are just the way your spine moves. You're going to learn a lot about the spine, or go into it with Angela tomorrow, because she's a chiropractor, and she's just the title of her thing is, it's all about the spine. And it really, in yoga philosophy, is all about the spine. The spine is believed to be the center of our energy distribution system, like the Amazon River. And I always think, the Amazon company would distribute stuff. But have you had any what's called subtle anatomy yet? That's like the chakra system. She might have talked a little bit about that. But the chakra system is basically, this precedes the Yoga Sutras, which came about, as I said, 800 to 200 BC, but more 200 BC, I should say. Prior to that, the idea was that we're comprised of energy. We're comprised of energy that's all around us, and all of us have energy within us. And we're constantly exchanging. And one of the goals of yoga is to have that distribution be free flowing and unobstructed. And so the main distribution center or river, I like that better, but the main river is the Sushumna down the center of your body. And then from that, there's all these little rivers, all these little tributaries. Yogis say there's about 72,000 of them, and they're running and distributing energy all throughout your body. If any of you have done any kind of Chinese medicine, acupuncture, or things like that, they have a similar system called the system of Qi. And Qi is somewhat like, they're just different ways of looking at the same thing, I think, because they have fewer than 72,000, but they have meridians in your body. And if you've ever had a certain kind of massage that they will work with your meridians, they'll be saying this is whatever, the gallbladder meridian or whatever. But in both systems, they want the energy to be flowing. They figure dis-ease comes from blockages where the energy gets blocked in one place and it's not free flowing. Angela is a doctor of chiropractic medicine, which is the same way in that you feel like she works to see how the spine has gotten blocked or not helping to distribute the energy properly throughout other parts of your body. So all the things she does, all the adjustments she does is to help that flow be more free flowing. So she'll go into that a lot more, but I think it's really helpful when you're thinking about your whole system is to think about the importance of that center axis of our body and how it distributes energy throughout. Now in modern Western anatomy and physiology, we have a lot more information about the fascia system. And the fascia system, it's believed, it has to do with that same thing. So it might be that now modern techniques are letting us look into our bodies and see that, yeah, we can see what these guys are talking about. Fascia is like the distribution system of all those nadis. And it's a fairly new body of knowledge, but more and more is being used by physical therapists and all kinds of different people in work. And, where they'll do scraping and acupuncture and whatnot to help move that energy around. What was I going to say about that? Or something else I wanted to get into about that. Well, anyway, let's just go ahead, run on into some movement. So here we are in our easy cross-legged pose. Sukhasana is the name of it. Remember, sukha means sweet. And you can sit however you want in the 1300s. So yeah, this involving, because somebody writes a book called The Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And this book has 32 poses in it. This is the first time a pose, a physical posture, was ever mentioned in any tome, any book, any whatever. And it is basically variations of this posture. There's 32, and there are ones that you might recognize, like Lord of the Fishes or nose to knee pose or asana, all those. But this first pose is really important to understand our anatomy. So if you were to put one of your hands on your low back, you'll feel there's a curve inward, and at the back of your neck, you'll feel there's a curve inward. And you probably, I'm sure, know this, that your spine has curves in it. And the curves help us to be more balanced. They help bring more stability, just like in an architecture, curves can help give more balance. And there is this center axis of energy that flows along that I've already named as the Sushumna, that is kind of paralleling that and helping to use the spine and the nervous system to help to distribute prana as well. The secondary curves, the neck and the low back, came about after we came out of the womb, coming up, and our head comes up like this. That's where we got that one. And this other one, the low back, they came out after when we were in the womb, we were more rounded. Those are called your primary curves, the back of your head, your upper back, and your sacrum. Your sacrum is a triangular bone like this that has to do, the point down, it's considered, sacrum means sacred bone in Latin, and it's kind of considered the keystone of our body, and we want to take care of it. And we all know sacrum is pretty important in our own body. It's like the bottom of the spine. And then in the front of it, if you could just take one hand now to the front of your belly, that area is considered what's called your Brahma Vihara. Brahma is, there's 3 deities in yoga philosophy: Shiva, the one who prepares the soil; Brahma, the one who plants a seed; and Vishnu, the one who cares for the seed. Brahma is your seed. It's your sacred home. Brahma Vihara means sacred home. And so this area is considered the keystone, the hub of your body. So I'd like to start out with a little we don't have to worry about the names of any of the muscles that are involved or anything. You might think about just, I think that's so cool that that's the sacred bone back there, and that this is the Brahma Vihara up here. This muscle does have a name. It's called the transversus abdominis, and it attaches on either side. Here's your hip pointers. And when you're contracting it, it's like you're pulling those 2 hip pointers towards each other and lifting up. I had a teacher once that actually got 2 chopsticks, and he put one angling from your left hip up, and then one from your right, and then intersecting. So you feel that energy lifting up. So it's a little bit another triangle shape, only this time pointing up. So there's a lot more I'll tell you about triangles, but we'll better stop there. But anyway, so that energy is really considered important for so many reasons. It is what's called a bandha. Did Kimberly or anybody talk about bandhas very much? Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah. So you guys can go back and listen to that more if you want. But this action, and I was saying in that class, I brought my article that I wrote. I wrote this article in 1995 before I was really practicing yoga, other than just, going to classes and more physical fitnessy, about this muscle. And I didn't know any of this stuff, but the article is that this is really important to protection of your back. When this is strong, we will not jam up our low back. We will not exploit it. What was another word you said? We won't put it. What have you guys had another word for what happens when we spill out? Dump. Yeah, you won't dump out here, or you won't dump out there. So it's just kind of a controlling thing. And this, again, I keep saying, don't worry about all the names, but I'll tell it to you. This is called in English the upward flying lock. In Sanskrit, it's called the Uddiyana Bandha. So you can remember bandha because there's bandhas in all the things. But Uddiyana means upward flying. But you can just say upward flying lock, or you can just say magnetize your navel to your spine. That's, come up with a cue that you like, or zip up. But this area of your body steers your pelvic girdle, and your pelvic girdle works mostly in this plane of movement, which is called your sagittal plane of movement, which is forward and backward, just like that. You can see your pelvic girdle tipping forward and then tipping back. And this will be in all postures. We'll be doing a variation of this. We'll either be tipping forward or tipping back, or finding the neutral in between. So pelvis comes from the Latin word bowl. So a good way to think of this is you want the bowl to be not spilling forward or not spilling backward. And so when you're in something like a, let's say, warrior one, this could be spilling forward, you can see, because it kind of looks like I'm jamming up here. But if I use this bandha, it's going to protect my back. And so I'm going to be getting a little bit more of a less likely to hurt my low back. Okay. And the same thing with my neck. In Warrior One, I could be doing something like that. But the other bandha is this one right here called the Jalandhar bandha. Yep. And it's kind of like you're going a little bit like pulling this back. It's kind of like you have a big mango between your chin and your chest, and you're holding it there. So when you go into a back bend, you wouldn't just go like this. You would be going more like this. And why do you think that would be important to the yogis? What were they? Because they just watched people. They didn't have the opportunity to get a microscope out or anything like that. I don't know how you guys. Anyway, what else do you think is happening when you jam up? You're like this. Well, you're not using that stira. You're just kind of like this. But also you can see that if we think that the spine is where all the energy is flowing, if we're just kind of going like this, we're kind of cutting off the flow, like a garden hose that you've compressed. So all this work we do with asanas is to keep that all flowing. So when you're moving in your postures, you can think about that, like, okay, what is happening now? Am I pinching someplace? Am I cutting off the flow? And so that's when, again, you go back to the idea of you don't want to be like this, but you don't want to be like that. You want to bring the energy into the whole thing. So in this posture, this can be confusing for people in Warrior One. Okay, I said, okay, so I better say this first. This is considered forward pelvic tilt. If people can see me, there's a light right there, so I look like I just have a big light on me. So this is forward pelvic tilt. Here is your pelvic girdle. So that means I'm taking these tips and bringing them forward, and my tail is moving back. The bowl is spilling forward pelvic tilt. So it might look, right, that I'm doing a forward pelvic tilt because it looks kind of like that. But my energy is actually, my navel is pulling back here, and there's actually this little loop of energy. So if I had a tool, like if I'm doing a fancy little YouTube here and had some kind of tool, I would be making a big circle that goes like this with little arrows. So the energy is moving here, 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 and circling up like that. So that way I'm protected. This pose is actually moving towards a backward pelvic tilt. Does that make sense? Because it's really confusing for a lot of people because it's like it doesn't look like it. It looks like you're tipping. Back bends are kind of one of the more tricky poses. Most back bends, so back bends are actually called spinal extension. Most back bends are in a sagittal plane. So just if you guys want, we could go ahead and stand up and do some of this stuff ourselves because you'll be able to stay awake. So, and then I am going to have you move to the wall in a minute, but I want to do the sagittal plane first. Sagittal plane comes from the word Sagittarius. Does anybody hear any Sagittarius? Yeah, and you're the archer, right? Something, yeah.
I don't know.
I think Sagittarius.
My daughter would know.
Yeah.
Everything is about.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. So if you were to pull a string on a bow, that arrow would go up and it would very evenly kind of hit a peak and then very evenly go down. It would go beep, beep. It would go in a big curve. And if you, either way, the same way going back, it would be this nice even curve. Like if you shot an arrow this way, it's going to be curved. So that's what we want to protect in the sagittal plane, where it's the path of an arrow. So to keep that path even, we're going to have to lots of times do this Uddiyana Bandha, and we're going to have to do this little bandha here. So those are super important as far as protecting your spine. So you can feel that in your own body, kind of tip your pelvic girdle forward and feel what's going on back there, and then tip your pelvic girdle backwards, and you'll kind of notice some things. I think we will go to the wall pretty soon because I think you can feel this with this plane movement too. So just find a little piece of wall. It doesn't have to be that big. You could stand over here, and there's places back there, and there's a place up here. Yeah, and just kind of stand against the wall and bring your head back and bring your navel back so that you're in a little bit of a backward pelvic tilt. And you can just kind of see how it changes things as opposed to if you were doing a big forward pelvic tilt. Forward pelvic tilts aren't a bad thing. They have a place. And that's why we're working. I wanted to work with bandhas first. So your low belly activating here just to keep your low back long. And then also you'll see another place, not here so much, but where you also need to pull your chin in. Okay. So this is neutral. This would be spinal extension in the sagittal plane. This would be spinal flexion in the sagittal plane. So both of them are just like an arrow. Now we're going to move into the lateral plane. And so this is where the wall, I think, is really helpful. So one of the first poses in the lateral plane would be tree pose. So just kind of however you want. You can bring your heel here, or you can bring it up higher. Just notice what starts to happen. Again, to be a yoga teacher, sometimes it's good to show the bad examples. So I can show the bad example. You're kind of going like this. You can see I need to pull my bandhas in so that it keeps me more straight. And it's not that you're trying to look a certain way. It's that you're trying to keep the flow of prana moving in your body more. Okay, so that's the lateral plane. Does anybody know what else this plane of movement is called? It's a plane with many names. Frontal. Or we said that, yeah. And the coronal. So it gets to have 3 names for some reason. The coronal, I'll show you what that is. Well, we can just do this. We're going to do standing side bend. So it's called Arch Chandrasana. So we'll just kind of reach up. Come over here so they can see me. Standing side bend. We're going to reach up, and it doesn't matter which arm really. Just lean like you're making a rim around the sun. So I know, we're not really moving in all the way, but coronal is the rim around the sun, especially seen when there's an eclipse. So you want to feel that really even curve coming all the way around. Okay? And then other side. And then the other plane of movement is called your transverse plane. And that is any twist, just twisting like this. So twisting, I'm going to go over the anatomy of that a little bit. From your sacrum, so from this bone here to the bottom of your rib cage, those vertebrae move together like hinges on a door. There'll be a little bit of movement between each one, but not a lot. So as you twist, you'll kind of move together like that. This especially your sacrum, that doesn't need to have a lot of movement. But up here you get to have a lot more. These vertebrae can independently move a little bit more with each other and more up the neck. So we do want to think about that too when we're doing our different postures. So that's called the transverse plane. All right, so
Can I ask you something? What is this?
that is actually, because it's forward, it's a twist. Yeah, that pose is called Prasarita Padottanasana.
But can you have more than one plane?
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I talked a teeny bit about this last week. I said it's kind of, I was talking about having people be in, okay, let's show an example. Warrior 2, for example. So we're in Warrior 2, and you could say, well, you're in the coronal plane. But because of what I just said, so thank you, because this will help. Because what I just said, I'm going to call it my left because it would make more sense to you. My left hip is forward of my right hip. It has to be because my heel's down. And you can try this against the wall. If you put against the wall, I'm going to take these off because I'm kind of slipping. If you put your feet like you're going to do Warrior 2, okay? So I have my front foot a little off the wall. My front heel is intersecting my back arch, okay? So this hip has to be forward of this hip, right? Just because of your hip socket. I mean, if your hip sockets were really open, it may be that it would be more than this, but for most of us, this hip is going to be a little bit forward towards the center of the room than this one. Can you guys feel that on your body? Okay, so these are open. This is called open hip posture. And right now we're in the lateral plane of movement. Now, yoga teacher is telling me, well, in Warrior 2, you're supposed to square your chest to the side of your mat. So that then, you want to get there. But if you did it with your hips, you would be looking like this. And you'd just be going back and forth like that. So what we do is take this twist right here. And now we are in transverse plane twist. And we're in the lateral plane. We want to stay on those two planes because we don't want to go into this sagittal where we're going, which a lot of people do. You'll see a lot of people doing like triangle like this, where they're kind of forward fold. So that's not the point of that posture. Yeah. Did that kind of answer your question? So yes, most poses, we kind of just categorize them because it's like, well, we got to talk about these things, and people tend to have to put things in categories to be able to talk about. We have to.
I think one thing Kimberly said in one of her videos was like, if you understand the plane that something's in, it helps you create a flow.
Yes.
If you're in sagittal, moving into another sagittal makes sense, and then adding in to create the
exactly.
Exactly,
because we can go through that too. We'll do that right now. Because when I first started yoga, I was really into power yoga, and we had a pose. This pose is in the back to Warrior 1. Okay, so what that means is my back is actually slightly rolling inward. It doesn't look like it does it, but we're squaring. It's sometimes called square hip postures. We're squaring our hips to the front of the mat, and I'm rotating here. So, and then you take your hands up. This is in the sagittal plane of movement. But then what we would do a lot in the old power yoga stuff is then we would go like this, and then we come back like this, and we go like this, and we go like that. So it's much better to have things that they're doing the same, like at least 3 poses, doing the same 3 things. So here we would be in Warrior 1, and then we might our flat back foot and come up a little bit closer and come into pyramid pose or revolve triangle, or warrior 3 or not asana. Those are all in that sagittal plane. So putting those 3 together is going to be safer than going from here to here. And then what was really bad we used to do is go from here to here and then come to here. So your femur head gets to be kind of like a, we were talking about this last week, like a pestle and mortar, it's going to start grinding in this socket. This is a ball and socket joint, but it's still, we want to keep it as lubricated and safe as possible. So yeah, so like usually what I would do in a posture is the sun salutations that we do usually, which is warrior 1, chaturanga, up dog, down dog, warrior 1, come to the front of your mat. So what plane of movement do you think that's in?
Can you say it again?
So you usually start out in the mountain and then come into here, come down, halfway up, put your hands down, step back to down dog, chaturanga or up dog, and then forward and come into warrior 1. Correct. It's all sagittal. So it's a pretty, done correctly, it's a pretty safe and good flow to go into. And then, so the moon salutations, Chandra Namaskar is all in the open hip postures. And that would be like warrior 2 to side angle to triangle to half moon. Those are all in the lateral plane. All of them, though, take twisting, just to manage what's going on with your back. Okay? That kind of.
Is the twisting though from here? Like you don't want to twist down here.
Exactly.
It's like the,
Yes. Not a good
like
thing.
you said, it's easier for your spine to twist
It is.
up here.
Yeah. So in Warrior 2, for example, one of my favorite teachers, Jason Crandall, says there should be a Warrior 1.5 because, it's like for a lot of people, Warrior 1, it's people say square your hips and you're going, oh, I'm trying so hard. And then this foot collapses and you can see my foot and all this stuff starts happening and you might finally get your chest forward, but this is all gone awry. So if you can be like, okay, I'm here, and some people will be able to go ahead and take their chest here, but it shouldn't be that you have to be forced to it because even if you are, ways to help you do that are to have your feet wider like this and just to be really using your bandhas, not worrying about twisting there and just taking your rib cage there if you have the mobility to do that. But for a lot of people, this kind of Warrior 1.5 would be safer. And the same thing with pure Warrior 2. Some people are going to feel better like this, and some people are going to feel better like that. We all have different bodies, and most of these yoga postures were first initially developed they came from young boys in military school, junior high age boys in military school in the late 1800s. That's when the asanas that we think of as yoga poses came about. So, yeah. So that's not all.
So we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves.
Yes. So, they're great poses and they had a great reason. And I could go on about this, but anyway, yeah, we're adapting things and the reason they did the sun salutation, which is a great, really wonderful thing, is at that time in the late 1800s, all the countries were getting more aware of physical fitness and the importance of it for their military and for the safety of their country. And every country had their own thing that they brought to it, their own traditions. And so the yogis brought their traditions of yoga, meditation, all that kind of stuff. And all the different countries borrowed from each other. Like the Germans had a system, the Swedes had a system. It's just really very interesting how people get kind of precious about things and say, oh, well, people are stealing the ideas from yoga. And it's like, well, it was a melting pot back then. And so the Sun Salutation series is a really wonderful series that's healthy and can be adapted for many people. But it probably came from Sweden or someplace like that. And I'm Swedish, so I'm just saying that. I did had a study in this area of how physical science developed over the years, and yeah, they're all in there doing stuff. So yeah. But thank you for that question because I hope that helps explain this a little bit more. So we did the planes of motion, we did the pelvic, backward and forward pelvic tilt. So I kind of act like the backward pelvic tilt is superior to the forward pelvic tilt. But like down dog, that is like is going to be going into a forward pelvic tilt. And we don't want to walk around like this where we're always in a backward pelvic tilt. This is not, operating system for our spirit. So we want to, just always be feeling like what is going to bring the most balance to our body, whether it's tipping forward, tipping backwards sometimes. In a down dog, I'll show you, because I'm good at showing bad things. So in a lot of down dogs, you'll see people kind of going, I think I'm doing it. Am I kind of rounding my back? It looks like I'm doing a backward pelvic tilt probably. And so here we want to feel that ability to, where I'm tipping my pelvic girdle forward. It's actually a little bit more neutral, but I'm definitely not rounding my back like that. I'm getting length in my spine. And so adapt, what I'm thinking Angela's going to be doing more tomorrow is she's going to be adapting, taking this deeper, how you look at your spine. Your spine is like the main event, the center of it all. I would add, but your sacrum is part of your spine. But this area here and all the way up, it's what you want to service, what you want to take care of. Okay. And just understanding how your spine works is really, really helpful. Okay. So do you want to go over some different poses now? Okay. So there are some interesting principles I thought we would talk about a little bit. When we're in asanas, as I said, or just our physical body is all balance. Your brain is always trying to bring balance. Like, okay, well, how can we help this person how can we bring homeostasis to this body? So when you do stuff like this, I'm going to put my feet together and I'm going to hold them. I don't even think anybody ever does this anymore, but back when I was setting all this stuff, they did. You go like this and you would go up and down, butterfly, things like this with your knees. Okay, so what is so bad about that is the body's trying to protect it. And so it has a stretch reflex when it goes, I need to tighten up to protect. Like when I go really fast, it's like I'm going past where my muscle is feeling comfortable. And my muscles tell my brain, oh, I don't want to go there. And so it protects you and tightens it up. So it's important to understand these reflexes. And we don't have to know all the names of them. I have this right here because I think it's good to know them and good to understand how your brain is your body. It's not like this is working against your body or vice versa. They're always working together. So what I just was showing you, as I said, is called the stretch reflex. And we can override that by going slow. So instead of bouncing our legs like this, if we're trying to stretch these muscles here, we take it slow. It's like people, like your brain has to feel like, okay, it's okay, I can do this. Okay, I can let go a little bit. Okay, and so it'll go. So that's one of those. That's a reflex. You go slow, you hold longer, and I'm just looking to see what other notes I just said here. Yeah, basically it's from the muscle spindles, like little smoke detectors or carbon dioxide detectors in your muscles. It will send a signal like, oh, they're going too far. So it just senses you're overstretching, so it actually tightens up instead. So by going slow, you can override that. Another one I want to do is this. Same position. I've still got my feet together in a cobbler pose. And if you have a block, you can try this because the block is pretty cool. You put a block between your feet. And so this reflex is used in physical therapy a lot. It's called the PNF, or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation technique, PNF. So what we do is kind of the opposite. It's going to affect the Golgi tendon that's in your muscles. And we're going to squeeze, and we'll do it for 7 seconds. 7 seconds is about one long exhale, one long inhale. So we'll take a long exhale, a long inhale, and then we'll relax. Okay, so here we go. We're going to press as hard as we can into that block for a long exhale, keeps pressing, a long inhale, keep pressing, and then relax. And then when you take that block out between your feet and come back in, you should be able to be a little bit more flexible.
My feet just automatically came.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done that where you put your arms in the doorway?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you hold it,
Yes.
And then when you walk away from it, your arms.
Yes. It's the same thing. same thing.
I remember my brother was saying, like, that's a lie, like, that doesn't really happen. It's like, no, you're not forcing. It really is like,
Yeah.
imagine
Golgi tendon. Yeah, it's called I call it the PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, but it is the Golgi tendon reflex. It's a reflex. So it's what we're doing is I don't want to say tricking your brain, but we're using our body's own desire to bring homeostasis to everything. We're tapping into that. Another example of the Golgi tendon reflex is I usually do this when I have people on their back. So you could go on your back if you want, but you do something like you're going to pull on your leg, like you're on your back, you're going to put your hands underneath your right hamstring here, and you're going to pull with your hands towards your chest, and you're going to push with your leg towards your hands. So you're just going to do that work and do it the same amount of time. So take a deep, long exhale, keep pulling, pushing, and then a deep, long inhale. And then when you're ready for an exhale, you might be able to have a little bit more stretchability, because what it's doing is you've been contracting that muscle for a long time, for 7 seconds. You've been working maximally for 7 seconds. Then when you let go, your brain is ready to go ahead and let you stretch longer. Okay. Does that make sense? That's a kind of a hard one. In facilitation and physical therapy, someone usually is standing over you. Like somebody will come up, somebody would be right here, and they'd be pulling on my leg, and I'd be pushing into their hand like that. But you can do it you can have students do it in your classes. You can do it yourself, and it'll help you. Well, another one, this is used in psychology a lot. I'm sure some of you guys are in that field, where you have people squeeze a muscle set, maybe your hands, your arms, maybe your face, and you hold it for 7 seconds. Then when you release, you're like, oh, I feel better now. So it's just kind of your body wants to have homeostasis. The other one that I really like to use in yoga practices is your muscles work in pairs. Like this muscle, your bicep, when you're going like this, you're contracting, but this muscle is releasing, is lengthening. So your muscle fibers are like this. When you're contracting, they're coming in. And then when you're stretching, they're moving out. So you can use that in techniques too. When you're doing something like this, if I want to stretch my hamstring in this pose, I would squeeze the front of my leg, and that's going to help the back of my leg stretch out. So that is a good way to get that extra oomph out of your postures. So yeah. So those are some reflexes that are fun to use, and just an example of how your body is always trying to take care of you and trying to, not let you hurt yourself. Of course, we get a little pushy and all that, and that's where we have to go back to the yamas and niyamas and try to take care of ourselves. Let's see. These are important physiology principles. And I already talked about the fact that we're all different. The fact of overload is important. If you go to the gym, you have to change, you have to raise your weights every now and then. I haven't for a couple of years, but if you really want to get stronger, that you need to challenge you. You need to have a bit of overload. And that's what your cells use to help whatever it is get stronger, and mentally as well. You study so that you can develop more synaptic pathways. So just understanding that when we are developing a yoga practice for others or for ourselves, either way, we want to have modifications to challenge people, and at the same time to work with individual differences. So those two things work together. People are different. People were different every day of the week, all the time. So we really want to, we want to teach people to create for themselves. So we can't look at you and say, oh, well, that person is really, could use another whatever. But we could generally say, if you're not feeling, there's a concept called playing your edge. And this also has to do with your nervous system. Playing your edge is that if you think about pain, we don't want to go into the pain chamber, but we also want to feel something. So I would think of this as a circle. If you're coming to the edge of the circle and you're like, this is starting to hurt a little bit too much, then you just back off. You play your edge. Okay. And if you're going past it and you're in pain, then you've gone too far. But if you're in here and you never move out and get a little bit of overload, you are not going to grow. That's that principle. And then really, I'm sure Kimberly, because she loves this concept, stira before sukha, which means you build strength first. That's why when I begin teaching a class, I always start with working on that Uddiyana Bandha. I usually have people feel it here. And you can feel it in a number of ways. You can feel it with your fire breath, putting your hand here, and you're working that muscle, that transversus abdominis. And you're working, of course, your other breathing muscles too. Or more with that article I wrote was about the stuff, like working that transversus abdominis by using this muscle to calibrate the lowering of your legs. So that brings people's awareness online that's going to be what they want to work from right there.
The thing that she said in one of her talks was stability. You must have stability to build strength.
Yes.
So you have to be stable, which when you're talking about
Yes.
the bandhas,
That's great.
that's what I'm thinking of. Like you're trying to create a stable structure, and then
Right.
from there you can build strength, and then from there you can
Build in mobility. Yeah. Stability,
build
strength, then mobility. The classic one I like to do is after doing some core work, then have people feel this action when they start taking their limbs away from that center. So here's that Brahma Vihara, the center of my body. So now the lever arm is a lot further from that area. So it's going to be more work. And once you feel that stability, then you can start working on the stability of your hips. Maybe you want to do stuff like this, and that's mobility as well. But yeah, that is so important. I thought another thing you're going to say is she always says it's like building a house. You want to build the framework first before you start decorating with curtains and all that stuff. But
when she said it for me, it also meant like in life in general.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a stable before you're going to be strong, to be able to show your strength,
Like
build your strength. You have to be
yeah, totally. That's a basic. What's so fascinating to me is the science, physiology, and psychology. It comes from centuries before the current era. I mean, 1500 BCE for sure, and probably before that. And all these concepts. The concept that Carrie's talking about a lot too has to do with the idea of the chakra system. So have you guys been introduced to that at all? Okay. It's so interesting because there's my book, because all the psychology we have practically is based on what you just said, is that if you're trying to help people move forward in life or deal with things, you have to first bring them to a place where they can feel safe and stable, and then you can start building. And that's what the chakras are about. First you have the stability, and then you start with the other things that are going on. And yeah, it's just really fascinating. I'm not going to go into it too much. I did bring my chakra book because I think it's so just fascinating by I studied a lot of exercise physiology and psychology before I got into yoga. And when I was first introduced to chakras, I thought, oh, that's just a bunch of stuff. And sometimes it can be taken too far, because I would go with teachers that would talk about there actually are little wheels in your body and they're turning. And I'd be like, I know that's not true. But anyway, it is super cool if you're interested to look at how your physiology really does go along with the chakra system. Our legs and our hips are our grounding source. They're the strongest muscles in our body usually. Our pelvic floor, that's kind of holding everything up. So that's all first chakra stuff. I am safe. I am grounded. And then the second chakra, which has to do with finding your uniqueness, your authentic voice, and being able to go with the flow. That has to do with your reproductive organs and all of that kind of stuff. So, and it keeps going on up all the way. Even I have some of these graphs that do really detailed drawings of how this is an interesting article, but you can see how all the muscles, he relates them to the different chakras. And the heart chakra obviously is where
I
just wanted to add on to what you're saying. Like, I think that the chakra system, like, it expands outside even our physiology, or like our physiology interacts with the external.
Yeah.
Connects to our chakra system. Like,
Yeah.
in Hawaii, like the Big Island, it's the newest land, newest lava, newest Great Lake. It's known to be like root chakra.
Yeah.
Versus like Hawaii, it's got the biggest, tallest mountains. It's up there, and you can kind of.
Yeah. Totally. It does. Yeah. Do you have Hawaiian roots?
I just got.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky you. Sorry, it's so cold. Oh, where were you? Yeah, I've been to Big Island. I lived on Oahu for a while, a long time ago. Like right after college. I loved it. Yeah, yeah. Well, welcome. No, how do you say welcome in Hawaii? I don't know. Yeah. Did you know?
I just said aloha.
Yeah. Aloha. Aloha covers it all. But so true. It's all so connected. So that's what's really cool. So the early yogas, gosh, I just want to keep talking about this stuff. So there's three main deities in yoga. And I'm sure Kimberly talked to him. And the first one is Shiva, who tills the soil. And then there's Brahma, the seed planter. And then there's Vishnu, the one who cares for the seed. And you can see this in all of life. And it's so interesting because the yogis must have come to this, created this trilogy by, they're an agrarian society. They tilled their fields and they planted their seeds and they fertilized it with, and I do this in every class I teach. I do the gratitude thing, but it's all what's going on with the earth, because then came the 5 elements of earth, water. So earth, water, fire, air, and rarefied air. And, that's just so much in the whole Ayurvedic system and doshas and all that kind of stuff. And it's with all the life all around us. So it is really cool to me to see how these people they must have, that's what they say, they stilled their mind so they could sit around and look at things and think about it and figure out, oh yeah, this makes sense. And yeah, I have to feel safe before I ever can be really kind to other people, before I can be compassionate. And so they came up with this really sophisticated technology, I think, that's yoga. So, and I love to apply science to it, because science is earth. That's us too. Science isn't some outside of us thing. It's the whole world. So, and the idea is in Ayurvedic medicine is that, which is yoga, which is part of yoga. The Vedas were the earliest works spreading the word about yoga. And it's that we're all comprised of a combination of those elements: earth, water, fire, air, rarefied air. And that's why they have the 3 doshas, kapha, pitta, and vata. And it's that we all are, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but my interpretation is that we all have that. We all have a combination of those in us, but we're all unique. So each one of us here has a little different combination. And why we study Ayurveda medicine is so that we can be more comfortable in who we are. So I am a Vata person, which means more of the air signs. And so there are times of the year when I need to do things that are going to ground me more. It's not that I'm going to change who I am. It's just that I'm going to work with who I am and learn about yourself. And it's just so cool that so long ago, that's what they were studying and figuring out. And so like nowadays, I've done lots of Ayurvedic things, cleanses, and, past for a while. And it's that you look at your own self. You don't go on a phase that, people go on some phase like, oh, I'm doing rah, 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 whatever. And it's just like, well, it's not going to be good for everybody. Some people, they can't deal with that. So yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating. So yeah, the mundane becomes the holy was a phrase that one teacher said to me once. And I love that, because for the ancient yogis, the mundane, the planting of crops, the nurturing of animals, these kind of things, that mundane stuff was the holy. That was what the spirituality was, and that's where they have the concept of we're all connected. We're all part of the sun. The sun is part of us because it grows our food, and we eat the food, and we it's just this whole big thing. So yeah. when we talk about anatomy and physiology, that's what's important, I think, is to understand that the concept isn't so much to learn every single muscle. It can be helpful. And if that's what you're into, it's just like learning Sanskrit language. If you're into that language, that's a nice tool, but you don't have to do that to be a yogic person. It's just more, what's in your heart and all that other stuff. So that's why the yamas and not niyamas are so important before you go anywhere else on the path. Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, or for pointing that out. Anybody else want to share anything? Mary? I think April left, but Mary's still there.
No, this is great. Thank
No thoughts, Mary? The whole group?
Handouts that on your book. They're part of our handouts.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yeah,
good.
you have them on the.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
I
pointing that out.
think it's the same one.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But it's not in color, but yeah, it's okay. Thank you. I kind of forget sometimes. Yeah. And you can print out the whole manual. I can print it out for you, but I think it is kind of nice sometimes to have a copy of the manual. I have a copy of the manual. This is my, well, no, this is just, my anatomy is so big. It's gotten crazy. I've got to go through it someday, but this is just my chakra one. And I just am fascinated by this. So if anybody wants more stuff, it's Carl Jung. I'm going to be doing something at Jump, and I've done it there before, but coming up and talk about chakras and dreams. So that's super cool because a lot of it, like Freud and Jung and people that were, psychologists much later than the yogis, they appears that they've used some of their Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They've used some of their stuff, and this workshop that I'll do will talk about how just the importance of dreams and how we can learn from them. Not like if you see a bear, that means you're scared of something. There's a lot more that goes on in your dreams than that. And the many levels of your chakra system, can help you understand that. So
Is that, so that's you?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's his philosophy that you're going to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have this one because I have more copies. This is a lot. I did a study with a Jungian psychologist, and she talked about how chakras relate to it. And it's actually, this whole notebook started out from her workshop. And if you want to take a second and look at it, it's kind of interesting if you're into, because she has things like views of Carl Jung. Here's this, and so every chakra, she has their philosophy in it. And then I put this together with my own research and did this little thing here. So
What is
this, I can send it to people. It's just a PDF of a workshop I do for the chakras and dreams. So
that? And you're going to do that at Jump?
yeah. It's going to be in this summer.
Okay.
Just let me, Mary, did I interrupt you? Did we interrupt you? You were going to say something.
No, you're good. Keep going.
Well, it's kind of hard because we can't see you. And then I thought I heard you talking and we didn't pay any attention. So I'm sorry. So Jump has a new thing. I don't think it's going to be totally bad, but I told some of you guys this, they need to show a little bit that they are operating with some income coming in. So I know you feel sorry for Simplot, but anyway, so we're moving into a little different thing with them, and they'll probably change back again because I've just been able to offer free yoga classes and use that beautiful studio up there, and it's been great. But now we have to do workshops, and we have to, write up a project description and petition for it. So I've written up about 6 of them, and they're going to probably be over the summer. So, and that's one of them. And there's going to be other ones too that are interesting to me. So they approved them, but now they're getting them up and out there and all that stuff. So yeah, so it'll be fun. So one other thing, I don't think I ever got too much into that, how muscles work together, except for just having you guys flex one muscle and see that the opposite muscle stretched out. But that's really an important and easy thing for you to do in your own practice. For example, we just use this simple one of just, stretching out your leg, squeezing, and then letting this back leg get that message to work. But there's health science that teaches how to live healthier, really says that it's important to use the different kinds of muscle contractions that we have. So we have the isometric, which means that your muscles they're not moving. It kind of sounds like isometric. They're not moving. So that would be something like pushing 2 hands together. Your muscles, they're not taking you anywhere. They're just resistance against resistance, and you hold it. And that is considered that muscle contraction requires more muscle fibers to fire. So it's going to be more intense. And that's a good thing for us to have in our lives. And yoga has a lot of that. If you think of plank pose or even just holding any poses. And why I'm saying this is I think it's great to go. I love going fast. Sometimes I like, like sun salutations. And the way I started teaching was more in the Ashtanga system where we did, you do 108 sun salutations. That's just, what you do, and you build up a lot of heat. But going slow and also taking advantage of some of these other kinds of muscle contractions. Like I said, isometric is great. Another one is the slow lowering of something that's an eccentric. That's where your muscles are actually, the muscle fibers are actually, longer. The fibers are moving away from each other, but they're still contracting. That would be something like this isn't that big of a deal, but just kind of holding and moving really slowly like that. That can actually yield a little bit more of and the good thing is for some people, it can build more heat. So just to know that there's many types of muscle action, but I think it's good to know that really the one that's going to be the easiest, which again is a point of my article, because I wrote the article because in children's PE classes in the old days, and I think still, because I heard some coach doing it at the gym the other day, like, how many of these can you do in a minute, and it was like, well, doesn't make you stronger by any means, to tap into the wisdom that going slow and holding sometimes can build more heat, can require more muscle fibers to actually fire. So keeping that in mind as you're thinking about your practice, just vary it a little bit. Do some isometrics, some hold, do some other stuff. Yeah, so we have a lot of conversation going on outside. Yeah.
Just kind of reiterate this is what I've learned is that in order to safely build strong muscles, the main muscle to begin with your stabilizers.
Correct.
Stable muscles.
Correct.
I could see them in there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really important. Your legs, we'll talk about, as being earth, the earth there's a picture I never got to take a class from her. She taught through her early 90s and she passed about, I don't know, I guess 10 years ago when she was 103, but I missed her. But anyway, I have her books and her name's Bonda Scaravelli. And she said, you should think of from your navel down, the earth. Your legs, they're not like in tree pose. You're not even, don't say the trunk of a tree. Those are your roots, whatever. From here down, that's the groundedness of and so, so when you're in these poses, you want to feel like when you're in Warrior 2, you want to feel like your legs they're stable and you're inviting especially your lateral stabilizers right here, you're inviting them to fire. And this is almost like an isometric because I'm firing these muscles, but I'm not moving in and out. And so and the bandhas, we haven't talked about all the bandhas. You have foot bandhas, pada bandha, that means foot. Your janu bandha, that's your inner knees. Your mula bandha, that's your pelvic floor. Uddiyana bandha, jalandhara bandha. They're all really helping to stabilize you. And then that freedom allows you to be more, willowy or whatever with your upper body, so that you build the strength first, stabilization, strength, and then the mobilization. What does that sound like? That's back to the system of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, rarefied air. It's of the chakra system. First you feel safe in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then you feel like, oh, I do have a right to my own individual freedoms. And then you build your strength. I can do it. And then I can love myself. I can be compassionate to myself. I can be compassionate to others. I can receive love and affection and give it. I can speak my authentic truth. I have vision. I can trust my intuition. And then I'm blissful. I realize I am a unique, specific expression of the life force. And then, so that's kind of the whole thing. Your anatomy reflects the philosophy of yoga. I brought this other book here. This is one of my favorite teachers. He's kind of a hill, but if you ever want to follow him, his name is Leslie Kaminoff, and he talks a lot about this. He talks a lot about how in so many ways, the ways that I've been talking about, but in even more ways. And this is just a really nice anatomy book. You had asked me about one book that had too many names in it or something. Was that you? Carrie?
No, our assigned books that
Oh, that one book, yes. I
she's
remember.
it was just description of
Yeah.
what muscles were being used during
Yeah.
the asanas, and
Yeah,
I was getting completely lost
and it
because I couldn't visualize
Yeah.
what they were, and then all the names of the muscles. I guess I was just asking, like,
Yeah.
you said you don't have to memorize all
Right.
that.
and I said that book, that's the part of the book I don't love. But
I knew the topic was interesting to me,
yeah,
but when I didn't, I was,
yeah,
Carrie, I had the same experience. I was like, I am skimming this, like I am retaining things.
and for your
It was
needs,
just too
yeah.
much.
I just was listening to. I signed up just to listen to. I didn't get very far yet, but she's a pretty famous anatomy teacher, and she said, just understand the basic concepts. If you're into that, then repetition. It'll start,
And use it.
and using it.
Like,
Totally. Yeah. Like learning a lot of things like Spanish. Yeah. Or, just hearing it and like that. If I could make that available to you guys, I'm going to try to do it. It's a course that I got, and it's good because she's good to listen to. Frankly, I listen to when I go to the gym because I'm using my body and I'm like, oh, well, yeah, okay. I hear what she's saying and stuff. And so just being patient with yourself is so important. And that book, I every now and then need to relook at my book choices and think about. I don't think I'll ever let go of Eric Schiffman or the Jessica Char's book because they're just so sweet. But that Mark Stevens book, it kind of came about it wasn't one of my first books that I recommended. I first just had the Eric Schiffman and then Jessica Char. So, and I'll talk to you about that too. The book. So
I like the one, like I've been able to get some of them audiobooks. And it's funny because I'm not an audiobook person in general, but it's helped me to get through some of them. And I don't want to say it like that, but
no, I know.
when I'm just reading, like I will fall asleep, right? Like I'm not a big sleeper at night, so I sit down. But if I can listen to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been really helpful
Good.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would almost, if I had to go back, well, I guess that you'd have both because it's helpful to have the physical book. There's a couple free audiobooks on Spotify. I don't know if anybody Spotify like premium. There was one that was recommended. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's for free on Spotify.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
an
if you
audio
can-
version of it.
Yeah.
Buy mostly, but
the one's the assigned book.
this other one was one that was mentioned in. I'll have to email it to you. Well, actually, I have my phone. I can tell you.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, but it's one that I bought, but then I found it on Spotify also, and I liked it.
Okay.
It was maybe like teaching through the asanas, like themes.
Okay.
Themes. It had to do with themes.
Oh, I love those books.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was really interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, dude, that would be great. I have some on Spotify. Can get to you guys too. That one is on learning Sanskrit if you're interested in that, and you can hear it and listen to it. And then it has it with going through the Ashtanga system. That you just learn how to cue that all. But yeah, sometimes just listening to things over and over again. I'm learning Spanish, and that's what I like to do too. So just kind of keep hearing it.
Also, like that specific book we have with the public library. I went and checked that out before I came here.
Oh, good.
Which one is on our
I think
topic?
the yoga anatomy. They have some good section.
I think this is a good one. I probably should switch to this one from Mark's. The reason, just so you all know, the reason I put Mark's on there, Stevens, is that he has a really, really nice template of classes. Like if you want, I want a 30-minute class on teaching blah, blah, blah. And then you can just look at it. But it probably should just be recommended because I find it kind of boring to read too, whereas the other two books are just, they're so full of heart, I think. I'm sure Mark is full of heart too, but, we all have different, tastes and stuff. So, yeah, but thank you for that feedback because that's good to know. And then there's so much information.
I don't know why it just gave me the idea. Like someone needs to make a little cartoon of people like doing yoga poses and give them superpowers.
Yeah, no, that'd be a great. Yeah, it would be a really good way to learn. We may need to, and I don't have Eric's book with me, but he and both these guys, like this one, this is from my training with him. But Eric has on his book, it's the white book. So we have the white book, and the blue book is Jessica Char's, and then I guess Mark Stevens is red. But anyway, he draws these waves like this, and then he has a little person up there that. So his idea is, his whole thing is, we're all waves in an ocean of waves, and when we can kind of rise up in our meditation and come to that state of bliss, it's like we're a little come out of the ocean, a little drop, and we're up here and we're looking at, oh my gosh, I'm part of that big ocean. I'm so special. And then we kind of drop back down, forget about it, and get all caught up in the bad stuff again. And then we'll, and the point is to get more up more often. So yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. Graphics are great. So yeah, but did you find that?
Yeah, so the one that is free on Spotify is Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses.
I think that I have that book.
It's not recommended somewhere, so I bought the book, but then I found it on there. Yeah, and so it has. I liked it, and also I hope this isn't like a cheating disclosing, but I have like in my head I need to get in 8 hours a week to, so sometimes I just like, okay, I can listen to this. Like,
Oh, you're fine. Oh, you're fine.
My low playlist. So that one's on there, and then there's also one on Yoga Nidra. If people like, there's a really good book on it that I really like a lot. That really goes deep into the history and the philosophy.
Who writes that one?
My internet isn't.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah, so I can't see it off of what I can see right now. But anyway, yeah, I can tell you. But it's I think it's the only free one on there that I.
Okay, but the library does have a lot. I have, and it's good too.
And the Heart of Yoga also.
Yeah.
Is on Spotify.
Okay, Heart of Yoga would be a good one to get. I have books too, you guys. I have so many books, and you're welcome to borrow them, or I have a couple, because when I had my studio in McCall, I had a bookstore, with the studio, pretty big bookstore, and I just kept what I, when we closed, I just took it with me. So I do have some books that you're welcome again to borrow, or just, whatever happens. So yeah. So let me see what else I brought here. We can, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Might not have enough for everybody. No, 6. Yeah. These are kind of interesting. And what I was doing, I'm going to be honest, I'm trying to get rid of paper. And these, so these are, I'll just put them here. So these are postures. This first one, this is one of my teachers. Her name is Shiva Ray. Has anybody ever heard of Shiva Ray? So if any of these teachers I study with or the big gods and goddesses of yoga, now everybody's like, no, I've never heard of them. But that was because they're, yeah. So she is great. She's from Venice Beach. That's where I did a lot of study. And she broke these flows into open hip, a bunch of open hips together. And then you'll have a bunch of closed hips. So if you guys want to have these, you can have them. Some of them may not have enough, may not have 6, but each one of these, each of those piles is different. So yeah, so one pile is, yeah. So this last pile I'll save up here. This is for closed hips. Yeah, they all just kind of look at the first picture. But I actually think this is really good. I do my own put together book that I like with stuff, and if I do, this would be something I would like to have in it for people to just really see. I don't think you guys got these yet. Look at this. And then I have.
This would have been really helpful when I was reading that.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple more of something here. Here's fascia. That's the thing. I think I might have taken a picture sometimes of some of them and put them in the supplementary thing. I did teacher training with her, and so it's just from my teacher training. So I'd like to do that and have pictures of somebody, so I couldn't, because that was from my training, and I'm not even supposed to do anything. But anyway, I thought those might be kind of fun. Did you guys get the fascia, or do you want the fascia?
Yeah.
I can't get rid of these.
Oh, wait. I
Really notice this week, like movement,
Uh-huh.
the connection between the feet and the hips and stuff. The hips, they
When we first started teaching yoga so long ago, we were very rigid about, you have to have this foot like this and this foot like this. That's the way it is, as if all of us do the same. But one of my teachers had us do a thing where we kind of closed our eyes and we went like this. We might even been, and then we stopped and then we looked at our feet and we're like, well, we're all different. And so to make everybody put their feet like this, your feet do reflect what's going on up here. So your hip socket. Yeah.
Like this plane, it moves this way, but it also
Correct.
this way.
Yeah. And like when we're in poses like this, when we're up against the wall, yeah, we tend to kind of go like this. And in this case, it's good to we try to balance the weight on our foot. So like if this is your foot, here, here, and here, here. Some people would say here, here, and here, but I kind of like this better because we do tend to rock like that a little bit. But you want to go with what feels right. Your knees do always point in the same direction as your feet for the most part. So you can always kind of go like this and go, okay, well, my knee's kind of pointing in. I'm not going to try to force it here. I'm going to find that in between place, or I'm going to change my hips so it's like this. But feet are foundational. Feet are really, really important. And I do have I should do a video on feet because I have a really nice handout about it that you guys could have. It's from a teacher training I did, so I have to retype it or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Is Virabhadrasana?
Which, does it say one? So it's Virabhadrasana, and then there's two, and then there's three.
And that is also the same name.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the difference between Warrior One and Crescent? I'm wondering.
That's Warrior One. This is Crescent, okay? And Crescent, both your feet are pointing in the same direction. Your heels are up. It's easier. So here I'm doing backward pelvic tilt, forward pelvic tilt. You have more mobility here. This is a really good pose to do all kinds of strengthening and inquiries. We call them sometimes where you're taking your arms and doing different things. So it just, other than the fact that you have not as much balance, it's a little bit more imbalance, it can be a better pose for a lot of people. This is Warrior One. The heel is down. This is what adds the complexity to it because now you have this hip behind this hip, like we were talking about, but then you're trying to come forward, so you have that twist happening right there. Does that make sense? And that's what causes, like right here, Warrior and Crescent. That's pretty easy. That's just like I'm here and I'm here. I don't have to worry about twisting. But once I take that foot down and then twist forward, there's more potential for damage for my sacrum or for my low back or from lots of places along my spine. So that.
Your heel is up.
Mm-hmm.
And your hips are both in a line this way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas Warrior One, your heel's down and your hips are slightly
Yeah.
from each other.
Okay. Crescent is sagittal and Warrior One is a little bit frontal. Or
Warrior One, I would say, is all in twist. Mm-hmm. Because you're twisting this. And it's a pretty big twist for some people, depending on your back. So we used to teach it, and we used to always teach, you hardly change your feet. So here, I would say, is in all closed hip postures, you're going to have to, you need to have your feet separated either heel to heel or even wider. People that have back trouble, even wider because of that reason. So here, if I'm here and my feet are wider, when I twist forward, then there's less chance for torque on this area. If I'm like this and I'm doing Warrior One, then that's going to be harder.
Okay, you can heard it.
Did you hear? Yeah, you heard it. Yeah. So, if you get a little pop now, then it's not horrible, but it's not good over time, So closed hip or square hip like these.
Well, and remember that.
Yeah.
Jason.
Both legs they square to the front of your mat. Both legs they call it closed because both legs are a little bit moving inward. In all open hip postures, one of your legs is in external rotation and there's a stretch going on. In open hip postures, you're working your lateral stabilizers more and stretching these more. In closed hip postures, you're still working your hips, but this leg is internally rotating a bit right here. It's like we used to have to take our hand like this and feel that action. So it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's, kind of really externally rotating, but the eyes, just like when we were in Warrior One, even though this looks like I'm in a forward pelvic tilt, I'm actually trying to balance my pelvic to be more neutral. So sometimes you have to think about what is the direction that I'm going into, type of thing. But I do have really big binder of workshops that probably, just when you mentioned the feet, I'm like, yeah, that would be something that it's so foundational to our practice. And it's really where people get hurt a lot. And we have learned a lot since the early days of yoga. I started, when it was in the late 70s. So, things have progressed a little bit since then. So many more people doing it, and so many people that are studying it that, there's a lot of research on, maybe we should think about teaching this in a little different way. So I'm lucky to be alive. My shoulders are, yeah. I had the double whammy of I was a kayaker and then so fighting with water and then doing all this binding stuff. I just kind of my shoulders are kind of shot, but it was really fun at the time. And it's okay. Yeah. So
You got to live, right?
yeah.
That's what our bodies are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I mean, if we can help people not get hurt as much, I guess the whole thing I was going to start out with, and I didn't do it, but is, what are your fears about teaching asana? And I will tell you that most people, when I ask that question, they say that they're going to hurt somebody. So, people are going to get hurt. There was somebody, it wasn't my class, but in my studio up in McCall, somebody was just doing Warrior 2 and they separated their shoulder. Somebody was, kicked somebody else in the face, they're doing a handstand. So, stuff can happen and you do your best. Pardon?
2 days ago, I pulled an ab muscle. I've done that before.
Wow. What were you doing?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's if you knew, right? Because I will have that sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know how it happened. I mean, I know it happened during class, but I couldn't even.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I pulled a shoulder muscle just getting out of bed.
and then there's that. Yeah. But yeah. So tomorrow you have 1:30 to 3:30 at the clinic, which will be really fun. She has all kinds of skeletons and hips, sockets to touch and feel and play and learn about. And so that'd be really great. And then on Sunday, we are looking at Mariah. I'm going to teach a kind of a master class at 9:30 at Boise River Yoga. And then after that, we'll kind of discuss some of the things a little bit, like some of the stuff we did here. We can talk about if you have questions or if you have poses you have questions about. And then Mariah at 12, but I will be right there to jump in, so you don't have to worry. So if anybody else wants to jump in, but you have a really nice routine she's doing that it's about letting go, and it'll be yin and restorative and all that kind of thing. And it's very slow.
And relaxing and some yoga nidra at the end too. So.
Yeah. So it'll be really good. And there's a little kitchen there if you need to, eat or drink, get some water or something in there. So, and then you come back over here. So that's just the way it is, So too many people want us. It's just, So, and anything that you all would really like to see discussed, thank you for the questions, all of you, because that really helps direct stuff. And, your comments about certain things of certain books, that's really helpful too, because it's kind of like, well, I don't love that book either. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I really like the Yoga Land podcast. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard that.
yeah. Thank
It's
you.
called Yoga Land. It's Jason Crandall and his wife, and it's got all different topics, like anything you can think of.
It's so good.
It's really good. I just put it on in the car, or it has some spare time.
It's very, very good. He is one of my favorite teachers. So he used to come to my studio up in McCall and teach. Yeah. I love his style. We both studied with Rodney Yee,